Okay, thanks very much. So, as Kara just said, I'm here to talk to you a bit on why you want to use Forge modules and also how to connect everything together. So that's actually useful. Let me introduce myself. My name is Gerard Apeldoorn. I'm a freelance Puppet consultant, so I do really short consultancy jobs to help companies get started in a manageable way. And I'm also a Puppet Labs, I teach the courses for Puppet Labs in the Netherlands, so I see a lot of familiar faces, of course. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Oh yeah, I'm subjecting you to my artwork. Don't worry, I won't quit my day job. This is all I could do. So, what is a module? Well, there are two ways to look at it. It's a building block, just like Lego blocks. You can download them and combine them as you want to build something useful. But technically, it's just a directory structure, I should say. And I've got 3 here. There are more, but these I find most interesting. So there's the manifest directory where your class definitions and defined types are. And these are quite similar, yet pretty different, because they're both a collection of resources. And a resource is a file, package, user, and so on. But still, they're both different, and pretty much the class you can use only once on a single machine. So you put all of the stuff there that just needs to happen once, like installing a package, managing a configuration file, or managing a service. And the defined type you can use multiple times. So for instance, if we probably need more than one vhost on a machine. So we can use this one over and over again and just provide it with different variables, and it will create a configuration file and create a doc root. Of course, we could still define those resources one by one, but that would be it would be a lot easier to make mistakes in that way. So this is very convenient. So again, the class only for resources that needs to be applied once on a machine, and a defined type for stuff that is repeatable. Okay, then there's the files directory. We have you probably want to manage the contents of a configuration file as well. So you need an original. You could put that in the files directory. And then Puppet will look at the file on disk, assuming that you've configured it that way, and have this file and see if it's the same version. If it's not, it will copy over the original from the files directory. Often you'll have some dynamic information in there. So for instance, a server name or a host name or something. Then you need a template, and a template is you can dynamically create contents of configuration files, for instance, like the Apache vhost that we just saw. It needs a server name and it needs a document root set. And that's when you need a template. You can replace variables. So that looks something like this. I've got a message of the day. And there are a few variables in there that are provided by Vector. So Vector is the tool that gets run at the start of each Puppet run, and it gathers information about the host that you're managing, sends it to the Puppet master, and all those facts, as they are called, are available as global variables, so you can use them in a template. So that's where they are coming from. Okay, so now we know a bit about the structure of a module, and then the question arises, do we want to write them all by ourselves? Well, no, not really. There are 4 reasons to go to the Forge and download these ready-made modules. So if you don't know yet, the Puppet Forge is a website where everybody from the community can upload their own modules and make them available for other people. So there are 4 great advantages of using the Puppet Forge, and that's, the first one is probably you get up to speed much faster. So if I have to write my module from scratch, it will take quite a long time. If I type Puppet module install and then the module name on the command line, it will install it in a few seconds. So that's a big time saver there. Also, if you there's already documentation on the Puppet Forge, so you're not the one writing that. So also saves you a lot of time, and it's not the most pleasant job, of course. Third, if the environment changes, if the managed software changes, for instance, or the Puppet language with Puppet 4 coming up, and you've downloaded a maintained module, the module maintainer will probably update your module, and you don't have to think about it, and it will probably also save you a lot of time. But I think the fourth reason is much more important, because these modules, at least the most popular ones, they're designed from scratch with flexibility in mind. If you are writing a module for yourself, you do that with a certain use case in your mind, right? I want an Apache module that supports virtual hosts. A bit later on, the business comes and says, well, we want Apache to be able to handle reverse proxies as well. Then you have to go back and think, well, how can I implement that without breaking my original servers that are already in production? Whilst if you have downloaded the Puppet Labs Apache module, for instance, you just feed it some different data and it will do what you want. So a lot of people are using these modules. They are designed with flexibility in mind. So it also future-proofs you. So that's a big bonus as well. So as said, the Puppet Forge is where you go for that. So the art is to, there are a lot of modules there that are great, and also a lot of modules that are not so great. So the art is to distinguish between both. So I hope the wireless is cooperating. So this is the front page of the Puppet Forge. There's a list of, there are a few categories. Oh, the touch screen is off. One group of modules is the Puppet supported modules. If you are running Puppet Enterprise, then you have got full support on these. They're also very well tested, very flexible as well. So yeah, if you can find it here, it's probably a good choice. And the downside is that there are not that many, only 20, but the most common stuff is here. So then there's the Puppet approved category. And this is where Puppet Labs taken a look at the code and say, well, this is good stuff. So there are about 40 here. Usually though, you end up searching. As you can see, there are over 3,100 modules available. So let's say I want to manage Nginx. And we get a list of modules there, 37. And now we have to determine which module we take. So I look for a few things here. Well, first, how popular is it? This one has quite a big number of downloads. You can even sort by how many times they're downloaded. But there might be a bit less relevant entries there. And I see here that Puppet Labs also published an Nginx module. But there's a big fat warning here that it's now unsupported. So we can go back here. So when I take a look at the module, I first take a look at the documentation. As with most open source projects, it's usually the last thing that gets written. So if this is, looks good and is easy to use, then that is also saying something. It saves me on implementation time, but it's also saying something about how mature the module is. So this looks pretty good. I always take a look at when the last release was made. This was pretty recent, so I can see that it's being actively maintained, which is also important. And lately, something new has came up. There's a quality score, which is pretty much the checks if it's adheres to the Puppet style guide and if the metadata is okay. And there's a community rating, so that gives you some extra hints on how easy it is to use this module. And if you're satisfied, you could do this, drop this on the command line, and it will download and install the module for you. But I'm using R10K, which I'll show you briefly at the end of the presentation. So, okay, so to summarize, take a look at the supported modules first. If there's one, there's one there that manages the software that you need to manage. That's probably your best bet. You can search, you can take a look at the documentation. Is it easy to use? You can actually take a look at the source code as well. There's a project URL link, and this usually points to a GitHub repository so that you can see, look at the code itself before you install it. Is it recent? Is it still being actively maintained? And so as I said, you can take a look at the source. There's usually a params.pp file in the manifest directory where you can find out if your platform is supported as well. So that's pretty useful. Okay, so now we've downloaded quite a few modules from the Forge, and they're just sitting on our disk on our Puppet Master. They're not doing anything useful yet. You've got to do something to make them work together so that you can create the end result that you need. So I've got we're building a few special modules for that. And I use the roles and profiles pattern by Greg Dunn a lot. And I always create a company-specific module, so the company I'm consulting for, I just take that name. Okay, so these roles and profiles modules, they are abstraction layers. So we create two. There's an implementation layer called profiles. They include the classes that do the actual work. And it's pretty much you're combining a few Lego bricks to make a larger piece of functionality. So you're doing a technical implementation there. Sometimes you can add some resources in there as well. And usually you find a create resources call. So I'll come back to that later on. The business layer, this is called roles, only includes profiles. So you just include the profile classes. There's no logic, they're pretty simple. One server gets assigned only one role and nothing else. So technically they're just regular modules. They're only special in the way that we are using them. So in a drawing, which is cut off at the bottom, these are our machines that we are managing. They get assigned a single role class, and the role class includes one or more profile classes. And these include the classes that do the actual work. There's Jenkins, Tomcat, Apache, etc. So it's an abstraction layer which is very beneficial for your sanity if you have a lot of nodes to manage. Okay, how would you set this up? As said, they're just modules. So you create a role module, you create a profiles module. And I always create a profile base class, so which gets applied to all of my machines. So I put just generic stuff there, like creating the sysadmin users, managing SSH, message of the day, simple stuff like that. And then for each profile that I want to create, I create another class. So profile lamp includes Apache and MySQL, and there's a create resources call to manage vhosts and databases. So I'll come to that later on, I promise. So and then there's a role class which just includes a few profiles. So the profile base is included. That's included in every role that I'm managing. And there's a profile lamp as well in this case. Okay, so then there's the company-specific module. What do we put in there? You can put some custom defined types in there. For instance, I've got some examples later on. It's for my other company, Altiplan, and we are running a Django application. So to deploy one of these applications, I've got a defined type because I need to be able to run more than one application on my machine. And the company module is a good place to do that. Nobody else will be interested in this defined type because it's just to deploy my application, doesn't work for anyone else. So I don't have to create a separate module for that or something. You can also create wrapper defined types and classes. Sometimes when you've downloaded a module from the Forge, they pretty much do what you want, but you want to add a bit of extra. For instance, if you are creating an Apache virtual host, you might want to add a Nagios check automatically. So to facilitate that, you might want to create a wrapper around it so you can easily use it. And I find myself putting, if there's a small class that's not really interesting for other companies, I don't want to create a module entirely, I can just put the class in my company module. Okay, so I snuck a bit of Hira in here because I think Hira is the best thing that ever happened to Puppet. So if you were here last year, you might find a few of the slides to be familiar. Hira is a great way to separate your data from your code. And this is really helpful because it gives you more flexibility and less headaches dealing with exceptions. So, as Hira is hierarchical in nature, so I've got some examples here, and I've got this hierarchy set up. So the top level, the most important ones, you could say, is the client cert. So this is usually the fully qualified domain name, as it is on the certificates. And it's very important to use this variable and not FQDN, because FQDN can be easily spoofed. You can just set an environment variable on the client side, do a Puppet run, and you might get the production database password in your catalog. So just use client cert, that's much safer. Second one is environment, so which environment did my Puppet run occur in? And the third one is common, which is not a variable, so it will just look for the common.yaml file. I'm using the default YAML backend in here. So I've got this in my Puppet code. Look, it's a hierarchical, it looks for the key, example key. And if I do a Puppet run from the machine app01.altiplan.com in the environment testing, it will ask Hira, well, give me that, the value for that example key. So the highest level will be client cert, so it will look in this YAML file, app01.altiplan.com.yaml, and it finds the example key, so that value will be assigned to $test. So it finds the first hit that it gets, and then it quits. It returns that value, I should say. If we were to do the same run on the app02 server, also in the environment testing, and that one does not have example key in its most specific file, it will so it will not find anything here. Then it will take a look in the environment, and it will end up with this value. So, and that makes it really flexible. There's different types of data you can put in Hira, regular keys and values. You can put arrays in there, 2 ways to write them down, single line or multi-line. And there's hashes. So an array is a list of values, and a hash is a list of keys and values. Or you can mix them all together and make a lovely mess. So, of course, having all this data in these files on disks in itself means nothing. You want to be able to use that in Puppet, and for that there are a few functions that are available. We've already seen this. This is the Hira function. The first parameter is the key that you are looking for, and you can also provide a default. So if it cannot find the key in your Hira data, it will not quit with an error message, but it will just return the default. And this is also a nice example of how Hira makes it a lot easier to deal with exceptions. So we are looking for a mail smart host here. I do a lookup for this key in my Puppet code. Most of my machines will end up in common, so they will be configured with the mail.ultiplan.com smart host. I might want to make an exception for the testing environment to redirect their email, so I'll just put this line in the testing.yaml. And my own smart host should not forward its mail to itself, of course. So for that, I've put this line in my most specific file, mail.ultiplan.com.yaml, so that it forwards all the mail to the smart host of the provider. So if you would have to do this in code, it would look something like this. So you have to look at it twice to see what it's doing, and it's not easy to be maintained. So just having Hira deal with these exceptions is really a lot easier. So, okay, so with the Hira function you can get regular values, arrays, and hashes as well. So that doesn't matter. It will find the first value and return that. There are two specialized functions, Hira array and Hira hash. Obviously they can only get the type that they suggest. But this doesn't stop at the first hit. It will go through all of the levels and it will concatenate all the results. So we have Hira array looking for the key users. If we're still on the app 01 in the testing environment, it will find 2 in the most specific file. Then it will find test user, it will add that, and then it will go to common and add test 3 and 4. So this will actually return an array of 5 elements. If we would do the same thing from the app 02, that doesn't have the user's key in this most specific file, it will just return 3 users. So also gives you a lot of flexibility. Hira hash does the same thing, only for hashes. So this is one function I really like. You can dynamically generate resources based on a hash, and of course you can load that hash straight from Hira. So in this example I'm using a defined type, Apache vhost, but you can use this with any type, so you can use this for users or packages, firewall rules, you name it. And you can see here I'm loading it straight from Hira, and I'm providing an empty hash as the default value. So if it cannot find the key vhost in Hira, it will just, the entire line will just do nothing because it will return an empty hash. So, but it looks in Hira for the key vhost. In this case we've got one. So you see a hash in 2 levels. So the first level is the title of the resource that we are creating. In this case we are creating 4 Apache vhosts, and in the second level there's these are the parameters that you are providing to, in this case, the defined type. So for instance, ultiplan.com has an alias, and the bottom one, cdn.ultiplan.com, has a different port and a different document route. So, and these have to be parameters that the defined type expects. Okay, starting with Puppet 3, there's also data bindings. This is also really helpful because a lot, well, I should say what it does first. If you include a class like MySQL Server, Puppet will load the source of that class, and it will find out which parameters it accepts. For each parameter that it finds, it automatically does a Hira call for the key, the class name, : and then the parameter name. So you don't have to do anything for that. That's fully built in. So, and this is really helpful because a lot of the modules that you're downloading from the Forge, they implement their flexibility using these class parameters. So you can still use a class only once on a system, but you can affect the way that you use them by giving it parameters. So, and so as you can see here, there's a restart, a package name, and a root password, but you can still make use of the hierarchical nature of Hira. So for most of my machine, the root passwords will be top secret, but on my Web 01 server, it will be overridden so that it's more secret. And by the way, you see the passwords here in clear text. If you use the Hyra YAML backend, you can encrypt individual values, so that's much safer. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit. I'm on my development environment here. So let's take a look at at the roles class for my Django application server. This is not that interesting, right? It's just includes a few profile classes, so that's pretty basic. So my profile class, some of these profiles are pretty simple. For instance, for my database, it just includes Postgres. So that's not. Is it good? Is it easy to read from the back? Yeah. Okay. Good. It just includes the Postgres server class, and sometimes they're a bit more complicated. Like for instance, my Django application server. I have to do a lot more to make it work. So install some software. Some package resources here. There, I put in an SSH certificate, and I've also got a create resources call. So the first parameter is the type. My touch screen is off by a few centimeters. The first parameter is the type, and I'm doing a Hyra call and look for that key. So I usually name them the same way, so it's easy to spot in Hyra what you are actually providing the data to. So let's take a look at my Hyra data. So here's an example of an application server. In this case, I'm only running one Django application on this application server. And so this is the title of the resource that we are creating. So single.altiplan.com, and we have a few parameters here. Supervisor, port, system user, system group, and these are parameters that have to be accepted by the defined type. So let's take a look there then. So the profile did all the stuff that needed to be done once, install software and put in some SSH keys and stuff. This is the stuff that's repeatable. So for every application that I'm running on my server, I will have to repeat this. So, and here you see that in Hyra, these are a few of the parameters that I put in there to use with the create resources call. So, yeah, what does this do? It creates a user and a group. It makes sure that the Django service is started. It gets a repository and a virtual host and create a database. So all the stuff that needs to be repeated for every application. Okay, so as you can see, the database parser is encrypted here. That's because of the Hyra YAML backend. I've got a little shortcut to the editor. So you can easily edit it, and just by saving this file, it will encrypt it again. And if I want to add another encrypted value, I just type some stuff around it. And when I save it and open it with regular Vim, it's encrypted as well. So it's very easy to use, and as long as you don't put these certificates that are used in the encryption and decryption process, if you don't put them in the Git repository as well, then you're safe to put your passwords in there. So, okay. So, I use R10K a lot to manage my modules. It's very easy to configure. You just point it to a Git repository. And then it does not only manage your modules, it manages your environments as well. So for every branch that's available in that Git repository, it will create an environment for you. And you provide it with a Puppet file, which is kind of like a shopping list of the modules that you want to download, and it will handle that for you. So I love low resolutions. This is my main Git repository. There are a few branches there: integration, testing, production. And R10K will check out each branch, and it will create in a separate directory. So that's your module directory. It does not contain all of the modules from the forge that you have. It just contains a shopping list that's named the Puppet file. And then it will download all the corresponding versions of that. Here's a little snippet of how it works. This is the Puppet file. So you just put mod and then the module name and the version name in a list, and it will connect to the Puppet forge, and you can download it. If you're in a secure environment, you can also clone the Puppet forge, so have your own version of the Puppet forge and make it download the modules from there. So it's just not just Forge modules, you can also put Git repositories in there, so you can also manage your role profile and company-specific module. So if you want more information on how to set up your infrastructure, you can take a look at my site. There's also some instructions on how to do that. Okay. Are there any questions? Nobody? Oh, yeah.
Sorry, there you go.
Do you use R10K to deploy here as well, or do you use a different method for that?
I have used it once. Usually I just put a regular Git repository there. So it's a separate step, but you can. I've used that before. Yeah. So. Okay, so that's it for me then. Remember, if you need some help getting started with your Puppet infrastructure the first time, you can hire me, and we can set everything up in just 2 days. And so, hey, couldn't resist, right? So, thank you very much for your attention.